Thank you, Professor Raha. Visva Bharati is delighted to be present here on the second occasion, as it turns out, for the event celebrating the inauguration of the Tagore Center for Natural Science and Philosophy. And we would like to express our gratitude to Professor Vikas Sinha, Professor Shivaji Raha, and the Bose Institute for hosting us here. Our presentation will be assisted by my Sangeet Bhavan faculty colleagues, Sri Prashanto Ghosh, Mrs. Ritopa Bhattacharya, Mrs. Manini Mukhopadhyay, Sri Sitaram Das, and Sri Animesh Chandra. The presentation is devoted to Acharya Jagadish Bose and Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, the two Renaissance genii connected by deep friendship and mutual admiration. Inevitably, there will be strong overlap with previous speakers, but we will hope that the overlap would not be repetitive and will in fact underscore and reinforce the main points that we are making in this interdisciplinary center, the Tagore Center, with which the Einstein Bhavan in Visva Bharati hope to collaborate and have an organic bonding. The first slide that I'm going to show you gives a short biographical sketch of these two colossal giants. As you would see, they were quite close to each other in terms of age, just 2.5 years difference. Both lived for about 80 years. The first one was denied the Nobel Prize in physics. The second one went on to win the first Nobel Prize in Asia. As it turns out, Gurudev expected J.C. Bose to get the Nobel Prize much before he did. Why were the two men so similar? The answer lies in what Tagore himself said about Bose, and I quote, "To my mind, Bose appeared to be the poet of the world of facts that waited to be proved." আপনারা চুপ করবেন? আমি বক্তৃতা দিচ্ছি, আপনি নন। To my mind, Bose appeared to be the poet of the world of facts that waited to be proved, whereas my own world of visions had their value, because a part of my nature is logical, which not only enjoys making playthings of facts, but seeks pleasure in an analytical view of objective reality. I'd like to have the lights off, actually. Only one light I need here. At the outset, it is well to recognize the dissimilarity as well. While Tagore is primarily a tall literary figure and philosopher, J.C. Bose is a man of science. Bose is arguably our greatest scientist in the experimental areas of physics and biology. It is curious then to analyze how Tagore, himself not a trained scientist, gravitated so closely to Bose, vastly different in what he practiced. This photo shows J.C. Bose having come to Shantiniketan to felicitate Gurudev Tagore in 1913 on the occasion of the Nobel Prize. The reason seems easy to grasp. Tagore, being a colossal creator of ideas himself, was closely and inevitably drawn to other creative minds, albeit in distinct fields. There's also a sneaky suspicion that can be substantiated by reading Bisho Porichoy that Tagore was deeply interested in science. It is said that amongst the persons who inspired J.C. Bose the most in his research work was none other than Rabindranath. It is interesting, though, to note that the two did not know each other in St. Xavier School, wherein Bose was in class 10 when Tagore took admission in class 9. After his 1896 to 97 scientific foray to Europe, and upon return to Calcutta, Bose was greeted at his home by Tagore, who had come with a bouquet of flowers. Subsequently, whenever Bose would lecture on his science, Tagore would write about it in simple Bengali, in a form comprehensible to fellow countrymen. Tagore would often invite Bose to Shilai Daho. Bose accepted the invitation with one condition, that Tagore would have to tell him a new short story every day. When the Royal Society of London had refused to publish Bose's contribution, Tagore wrote, quote, Jagadish Chandra has discovered such a great scientific truth that its impact will be far-reaching and eternal. Now we will have to fight courageously to establish his theory among common people, and then he can take rest. The person who has started such work will have to complete that himself because it is well within his capability and competence. So, unless he completes the initiated work, it will lose its charm, unquote. Whenever Bose would be downcast, Tagore would console. Every great invention compels a science to build its foundation in a new or novel way that is not accepted or granted in a day. One has to fight for long to desist the opposition and contrarieties to prove its honesty through long and continuous struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, a disclaimer at the outset. Most of Tagore's writings are in Bengali. What I have tried to do is to make my own modest effort in English translation, both from Visva Porichoy and Sravon Shandha that I will extensively quote from. However, in order to underscore the fact that Jagadish Bose was also a great literary figure in Bengali, I'll read out his writings in Bangla. But first, let me read out a part of a poem Tagore wrote for Bose in the year 1928. মনে আছে একদা যেদিন আসন্ন প্রচ্ছন্ন তব অশ্রুদ্বার অন্ধকারে লীন ঈর্ষা কণ্টকিত পথে চলেছিলে ব্যথিত চরণে ক্ষুদ্র শত্রুতার সাথে প্রতিক্ষণে অকারণ রণে হয়েছ পীড়িত শ্রান্ত সে দুঃখই তোমার পাথেয় সে অগ্নি জ্বেলেছে যাত্রাদ্বীপ অবজ্ঞা দিয়েছে শ্রেয় পেয়েছ সম্বল তব আপনার গভীর অন্তরে তোমার খ্যাতির শঙ্খ আজি বাজে দিকে দিগন্তরে সমুদ্রের একুলে ওকুলে আপন দীপ্তিতে আজি বন্ধু তুমি দীপ্যমান উচ্ছ্বসী উঠিছে বাজি বিপুল কীর্তির মন্ত্র তোমার আপন কর্ম মাঝে জ্যোতিষ্ক সভার তলে যেটা তব আসন বিরাজে সেথায় সহস্র দ্বীপ জলে আজি দীপালি উৎসবে আমারও একটি দ্বীপ তারই সাথে মিলাইনু যবে চেয়ে দেখো তার পানে এ দ্বীপ বন্ধুর হাতে জ্বালা তোমার তপস্যা ক্ষেত্রে ছিল যবে নিভৃত নিরালা বাধায় বেষ্টিত রুদ্ধ সেদিন সংশয় সন্ধ্যাকালে কবি হাতে বরমালা সে বন্ধু পড়ায় ছিলে ভালে অপেক্ষা করে নিষেধ জনতার সমর্থন তরে দুর্দিনে জ্বেলেছে দ্বীপ রিক্ত তব অর্ঘ্যথালি পরে আজি সহস্রের সাথে ঘষিল সে ধন্য ধন্য তুমি ধন্য তব বন্ধুজন ধন্য তব পুণ্য জন্মভূমি. The first song aptly describes the depth of bonding between these two great individuals.
বিশ্ব সাথে যোগে যেথায় বিহার সেখানে যোগ তোমার সাথে আমার বিশ্ব সাথে যোগে যেথায় বিহার নয় কো বনে নয় বিজনে নয় কো আমার আপন মনে সবার যেথায় আপন তুমি হে প্রিয় সেথায় আপন আমার বিশ্ব সাথে যোগে যেথায় বিহার সবার পানে যেথায় বাহু অসার সেইখানেতে প্রেম জাগিতে আমার গোপনে প্রেম রয় না ঘরে আলোর মতো ছড়িয়ে পড়ে সবার যে
We want to now question why we should think of songs at all within the domain of science. The song that we are now going to hear would make it clear that every marvel of creation is expressed through Rabindra Sangeet. Thus, Guni is thee whose songs I listen to with amazement. Hence, song is just a metaphor. It symbolizes every aspect of creation.
তুমি কেমন করে গান করো হে গুণী, আমি অবাক হয়ে শুনি, কেবল শুনি। তুমি কেমন করে গান করো হে গুণী, সুরের আগুন ঘুরন ফেলেছে, সুরের হাওয়া চলে বাদল বেয়ে, সুরের আগুন ঘুরন ফেলেছে, সুরের হাওয়া চলে বাদল বেয়ে, ভাষণ ফুটে ব্যাকুল বেগে, ভাষণ ফুটে ব্যাকুল বেগে, বহিয়া যায় সুরে সুরধুনি, তুমি কেমন করে গান করো হে গুণী।
In the essay Shravan Shandha, Gurudev writes, this earth, the ocean, the sky, they all strive to emphatically express themselves. However, there is no appropriate medium of expression but for a melodious tune. A tune in water springs, a tune in the ecstatic springy air, a tune in the autumn blue sky, and that tune manifests itself not via spoken words but through its presence in music and painting. Hence, when nature wants to converse with us, it does so by arousing the sublime music that is embedded in our hearts. Word belongs to man, but song belongs to nature. Words are clear and constrained by context, while songs are diffuse and in anxious need for enmeshing into the endless. That is why it is through words that man makes contact with civilization, whereas songs enable man to connect with the universe. When man lends tune to a word, that word outgrows its meaning and intertwines itself with the deep blue sky above. The tune goads man to make his happiness and grief as a part of this universe. His pathos blend into the color of dawn and dusk and attain great charm by adjoining with the unspoken muse of this world. Music helps man to be oblivious to the narrow-mindedness of his daily life, unquote. গানের ভিতর দিয়ে দেখি যখন দেখি ভুবন খানি, তখন তারে চিনি আমি, তখন তারে জানি. Tagore wrote in Shravan Shandha, music is omnipresent in all cosmic thoughts. His mind, Tagore's mind that is, was stirred by the same deep questions that trouble scientists seeking to unravel the mystery of creation through the aid of theory and experiments. Thus every entity, sun, moon, planet, star, river, man, animal, bird, tree, felt by the poet through a combination of spiritualism and science, is expressed by his songs. We just heard Professor Mohan Singh singing, Je dhruva podo diyecho bandhi bishyo tane, milabo tai jibano gane. J.C. Bose, quote, the poet of the world, himself wrote eloquently in Bengali. Here is a short quote from Bhagirathir Utsha Sandhane. আমাদের বাড়ির নিম্নেই গঙ্গা প্রবাহিত, বাল্যকাল হইতেই নদীর সহিত আমার সখ্য জন্মিয়াছিল। বৎসরের এক সময়ে কুল প্লাবন করিয়া জলস্রোত বহুদূর পর্যন্ত বিস্তৃত হইত, আবার হেমন্তের শেষে ক্ষীণ কলেবর ধারণ করিত। প্রতিদিন জোয়ার ভাঁটায় বাড়ি প্রবাহের পরিবর্তন লক্ষ্য করিতাম। নদীকে আমার একটি গতি পরিবর্তনশীল জীব বলিয়া মনে হইত। সন্ধ্যা হইলেই একাকী নদী তীরে আসিয়া বসিতাম। ছোট ছোট তরঙ্গগুলি তীর ভূমিতে আছড়াইয়া পড়িয়া কুলু কুলু গীত গাইয়া অবিশ্রান্ত চলিয়া যাইত। যখন অন্ধকার গাঢ়তর হইয়া আসিত এবং বাহিরের কোলাহল একে একে নীরব হইয়া যাইত, তখন নদীর সেই কুলু কুলু ধ্বনির মধ্যে কত কথাই না শুনিতে পাইতাম। কখনো মনে হইত, এই যে অজস্র জলধারা প্রতিদিন চলিয়া যাইতেছে, ইহা তো কখনো ফিরে না, তবে এই অনন্ত স্রোত কোথা হইতে আসিতেছে? ইহার কি শেষ নাই? নদীকে জিজ্ঞাসা করিতাম, তুমি কোথা হইতে আসিতেছ? নদী উত্তর করিত, মহাদেবের জটা হইতে। তখন ভাগীরথীর গঙ্গা আনয়ন বৃত্তান্ত স্মৃতিপথে উদিত হইত। তাহার পর বড় হইয়া নদীর উৎপত্তি সম্বন্ধে অনেক ব্যাখ্যা শুনিয়াছি, কিন্তু যখনই শ্রান্ত মনে নদী তীরে বসিয়াছি, তখনই সেই চিরাভ্যস্ত কুলুকুলু ধ্বনির মধ্যে সেই পূর্ব কথা শুনিতাম, মহাদেবের জটা হইতে। We now return to the solar system from Visva Porichoy. In the preface, Gurudev wrote to Satyendranath Bose, the mathematical physicist, every educated person must enter the arena, if not the core of science. There is no ignominy in popularizing science to the aid of literature. This is why I have ventured to write on sciences, though I feel accountable not just to literati but to scientists as well, because science is unforgiving to inaccurate descriptions. I have therefore tried to be cautious despite my limitations. The fact is, I felt duty-bound to write about science, not simply for students but for self as well. I've been able to educate myself to the writing of Visva Porichoy. I feel such a pupil-like mentality may actually be useful for students at large. Needless to say, I am not a serious student of science, but I had this endless temptation to taste the juice of science from the very childhood. I was about 9 or 10 when I was introduced to Mr. Sitanath Dotto, who used to frequent us every Sunday. I used to feel astonished when Mr. Dotto would explain certain standard theories of science through examples. I recall with amazement how he demonstrated by sprinkling sawdust the phenomenon of convection by hot water at the bottom of a vessel put on fire, moving upwards, thereby causing colder water from the top move downwards. I accompanied my revered father at the age of 12 to the Dalhousie Hills. After the day's hard work, we would reach our bungalow in the evening. Father and I would sit on a divan in our balcony. Gradually, as the dusk set in, the stars would appear to descend from the clear sky in the background of the distant mountains. Father would introduce me to the stars and the planets. Not merely an introduction it was, but a clear exposition of the distances of their orbits from the sun, the time period of their revolutions, etc.
আজি যত তারা তব আকাশে সদমোর প্রাণ ভরি প্রকাশে। আজি যত তারা তব আকাশে, আজি কোনো গান পারেও না জানি, শুনিতে না পাই আজি কারো বাণী গে। নিখিল নিঃশ্বাস আজি বুকে, বাঁশরীর সুরে বিলাসে। আজি যত তারা তব আকাশে।
It is the sun which had given birth and provided nourishment to this earth. The sun provides a curtain of light around our mother earth, and therefore we are unable to visualize this universe beyond during the day, Gurudev wrote. However, the day ends, the sun sets, the lid of light disappears, and it is then innumerable stars lit up the dark sky. Now we move on to plant science, a subject of great interest and closeness to Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose. We first present two letters written by Tagore to Bose, which demonstrate his appreciation for Bose's work on plant science, marked by tongue-in-cheek wit. From Shilaidaho, 21st May 1901. Friend, I feel proud to read about the method you have discovered to pinch in parenthesis, chimti kata, to pinch every aspect of nature. Until now, inanimate objects were troubling us. Now I can contemplate revenge on them thanks to your discovery. Go ahead and administer unending pinches and poisons to them. Don't leave them alone. From now on, judges can pronounce, quote, pinching punishments, unquote, for inanimate objects if they ever come up for courtroom trials, unquote. Once again, do get prepared for an extended stay in England for the sake of your work. Do not spoil your endeavor by returning in the midst of the troubles here. Please do not hesitate to write me in detail how much money you will need for this extended sojourn. Yours, Rabindranath Tagore. 4th June 1901. Friend, bravo, glorious to you. I am in cloud 9 since this morning after receiving your letter. I have lowered myself to the feet of the Almighty who through your work has erased the shame of our country. My friend, please accept my offerings for which my heart feels so keen. Glory to you, please ignite the lamp of knowledge of my India as its new sage. Once again I plead, do not make an untimely return to India. Please complete your penance. You are the one who would rescue Sita from the Ashokban. I can bask in the reflected glory of my country if I can be of small help in this cause. My deep regret is that I am not with you to shake your hands at these times of your glorious achievements. Yours, Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore wrote for Bose, Joy hok tobo joy, স্বদেশের গলে দাও তুমি তুলে যশমালা অক্ষয় বহুদিন হতে ভারতের বাণী আছিল নীরবে অপমান মানি তুমি তারে আজি জাগায়ে তুলিয়া রটালে বিশ্বময় জ্ঞান মন্দিরে জ্বালায়েছ তুমি যে নব আলোক শিখা তোমার সকল ভ্রাতার ললাটে দিল উজ্জ্বল টিকা অবারিত গতি তব জয় রথ ফিরে যেন আজি সকল জগৎ দুঃখ দীনতার যা আছে মোদের তোমারে মাধিনা রয় About plants, Tagore wrote in Visva Parichoy, as the earth began the process of freezing into a solid lump from a liquid mass at the time of its inception, its surroundings were filled with humid vapor and carbon-related gases. Further cooling led to nitrogen and other gases. It is surprising at first sight that so much oxygen had survived, even though the latter is highly reactant and prone to form compounds. The reason is the abundance of trees and vegetations. The trees help imbibe carbon from atmospheric carbon dioxide to form cells and release oxygen. The resultant loss of carbon dioxide is replenished from the exhaled air of living and non-living ones. It is surmised that life began from the semblance of oxygen left behind in ancient vegetation. The growth of the latter released further oxygen gas in the atmosphere at the expense of carbon dioxide. The molecule called chlorophyll is present in the green leaves that store sunlight in the form of energy. That energy helps create food in the form of fruits, crops, etc. On the other hand, the tiny amount of carbon dioxide in the air penetrates as carbon in vegetables from which coal is produced, thereby aiding sustenance of life. It is the tree that is central to the chain of food production in the form of rice and wheat by the process of mixing carbon dioxide with water with the aid of chlorophyll that draws energy from the sunlight, unquote. Tagore captured the critical and essential importance of trees, plants, vegetation and crops in the evolution of man by institutionalizing in Visva Bharati certain festivities such as Vriksharopon, tree planting, and Holocaustion, plowing.
মরু বিজয় লোকে তনু উড়াও হে শূন্যে উড়াও উড়াও হে প্রবল প্রাণ ভুলে রে ধন্য করো করুণার পুণ্যে ধন্য করো হে কোমল প্রাণ মৌনি মাটির মর্মে গান কবে উঠিবে ধনিয়া ধনিয়া মর মর তব রবে মাধুরী ভরিবে ফুলে ফলে পল্লবে রচে দাও না হাতে, শুদ্ধ গীতের ভাষা রচে দাও। হে উদার প্রাণ ভূমিদের ধন্য করো, ধন্য করো, করুণার পুণ্যে ধন্য করো, করো হে কোমল প্রাণ। আমরা চাষ করি আনন্দে, আমরা চাষ করি আনন্দে,